Michael Durant joins us right now. He'll be our keynote speaker for Armed Forces Thanksgiving event little later on today. American pilot and author in the Company of Heroes, Distinguished Service Medal, and Distinguished Flying Cross awardee as well. Michael, thank you so much for your service, and thank you so much for being here with us today to share a little bit about what's happening. Of course, this is a great event, maybe unlike anything else that happens anywhere else across the country. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that, and it's my pleasure to be with you here today. I actually haven't. I mean, there's lots of things to honor veterans and show appreciation for the military, but this one does seem to be a bit unique part of it.
It really is something to come together. Not only are we able to honor those who are serving and who have served, but you marry that with this ability to get together with young folks, students who maybe get a chance to see up close and personal, what that's like and why that ideal of the service is so important.
I agree, and I think that is what makes this particular event unique. Is it's a combination of not just industry people and veterans organizations, but it also brings in the young people and from what I've seen, I've watched some of the videos from prior years. There seems to be a tremendous level of engagement, and it's a win-win. So again, glad to be a part of it.
Michael Durant is with us right now. A little bit of maybe about what you're sharing today. What these kids and everyone really will get a chance to listen, because this year is another one of those wild years. Although I think we're getting closer to being back to normal, maybe in the coming year. But everything will be streamed live, and of course, armedforcesthx.org is the website for the virtual event this year. But what can folks expect to see?
So I'm one of those people that was sort of thrust into the limelight kind of out of nowhere. I just serving in the military, out there doing my thing, and all of a sudden it becomes an international news story. So, I got asked to do things that I never thought in my life I would ever do, in terms of presenting to audiences from across the spectrum. And what's been consistent over the entire 25 years is that people want to hear my firsthand version, if you will, of the story. I mean, many people are familiar with Black Hawk Down. Many people are familiar with the fact that things went the way they did in Somalia during that time period, but not everyone has heard from me. And so what I'm going to do is basically explain the mission and why we were there to begin with, what was going on, what went wrong, and what are the after effects for me as a veteran, and then try to tie that back to some of the challenges other veterans may be dealing with, and highlight that, because in the end, that's really what part of what this is about is raising awareness for the services and support that may be required on a case-by-case basis.
And a lot of us are familiar with the movie, but the inside story of what went down, especially, I think is so powerful to be able to hear this, but in a setting especially as unique as this will be. But just walk us through a little bit of that, Michael, and what you share.
Well, it's a complicated story, but this was a special operations mission, and that's another thing that's really changed over the past couple of decades is people hear about these units a lot more than they did maybe back in the early 90s. I think in the early 90s, the average American probably didn't even know these units existed, and we were doing missions all over the place. And why these units exist is because we get specialized training, we have specialized capabilities and equipment, tend to be more experienced people, and in this particular case, the mission is to go capture bad guys. I mean, that's a very general term, but we didn't call them terrorists at the time, but you could argue they were. I mean, this is terrorist-like activities that we were trying to sort of put a damper on. So, when you think about going into a foreign country in a fairly large city and trying to go in there and find these people and then apprehend them and turn them over to the UN for trial, it's pretty tricky business. So we, that was our mission, and we had done 7 missions. That was the 7th mission, 6 prior that all went well. And then on this one, the enemy had prepared itself for what they'd already seen happen 6 times, and they made a commitment to do some things that they hadn't done before, primarily use rocket-propelled grenades against the aircraft. I think up until that point, they hadn't really thought they would be effective, but they decided to start to shoot them at us. And the estimates are they fired about 125, I think, RPGs at us, somewhere in that range. And, when you shoot that many, it doesn't matter how primitive the weapon is. At some point, when you're close range, you're going to hit the target. So they ended up shooting down 5 aircraft. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that. My aircraft gets some attention, and the first aircraft down, Super 6-1, gets some attention. But a lot of times, the fact that 5 total were lost gets lost in the storyline. So it just reinforces the notion that they had a shift in their approach to how they were going to deal with our missions, and it was obviously effective, and it caused a huge issue for us once the aircraft started getting shot down, because now you have the battle you're already trying to fight, which is already very difficult and hazardous, and part of what hurt us is the fact that we didn't have some assets that would have been tremendously valuable had they been made available. So we were really not as equipped as we should have been, and once we lost some aircraft, that just made the problem even worse, and eventually got to the point where it was a recovery operation. I mean, we just had to get people off the target, and spent 17 hours doing so. I ended up getting shot down about an hour into that, and just created, again, made the problem even harder for the commander to solve, because he had separate crash sites. He had the target site. He had ground convoy trying to get to it. And what I'm going to do is try to explain how that all fit in, and then how we resolved it and got everybody out of there.
An incredible story, and an opportunity not just for folks who have served and going to be honored that day, but also for young folks to come together and hear these challenges, and how, in spite of these adversity, you can apply these very things to your everyday life. Some things that, you only maybe see in the movies or hear about on the news, well, they have real life applications, don't they?
No question. And in fact, in the first part of my presentation, I talk about what I thought made these units special in how those same basic building blocks applied to any organization, whether it's a football team or a business or a family or whatever it is. Anything you try to do that involves more than one person is going to be more effective if you can apply some of the things that I'm going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate just a little preview here. Of course, today the presentation and the ceremony will begin, and we'll have that streamed again all live online, and you can go to armedforcesthx.org. Especially if you have somebody that you think would appreciate seeing this. Maybe you've got friends or family members, maybe a student in your life that this would be good for. It will be interesting, I think, for a lot of folks. And Michael, we just appreciate, thank you for continuing to serve in this capacity as you share this story. It's so important for everyone to hear.
Well, you're welcome. It's an incredibly powerful and important cause, and I'm happy to support it any way I can.
Stream the event live at armedforcesthx.org and help us honor those in service to our country.